We all know the joke about humans and their cannons. If you meet a human, there's a cannon within your tail's reach. When I first met the human called Gabriel, I believed that any species that enthralled with weapons would be aggressively trying to show me their cannons. After a while of speaking to him, as we waited for our employer to arrive, I asked if I could see his cannon. Take note, never ask a human to show you their cannon. You may not get the reaction. In this case, he simply paused, looked at me with a puzzled expression, and asked me to clarify my question. Informing him that I wanted to confirm that humans always have a cannon somewhere on their bodies, or keep one close, and I was just curious, as he was the first human that I had ever interacted with. Gabrielle informed me that the question, at least its phrasing, could be misconstrued depending on the human, and of course the human's level of intoxication. Finally realizing, Gabrielle looked around before reaching under his outer garments. He pulled out a metal contraption that was hardly the size of his hand. He then explained that this was his everyday carry weapon. I asked him to explain, and he did. The explanation was quite long, yet it came down to a few basic points. Out here in the ether, there are some very bad creatures, some of which that like to attack a squishy human all by themselves. Just in case one of these creatures decide to make a victim out of the human, they will learn a hard lesson once this cannon is introduced. I could understand his reasonings, as humans do not come with any natural offensive or defensive attributes. I did ask that instead of waiting for these creatures, if he would go and look for said creatures. The response I received was full of strange phrases like, "Never go out looking for trouble, because trouble will be waiting for you," and "Better to have and not need than need and not have." Not long after that, our employer arrived, a cargo ship looking for laborers leading into the void. From that point on, Gabriel became like a second brother to me as we taught each other and kept each other out of other issues that simple lost in translation situations would bring you into, well, let's just say you would find trouble. After a few jobs, we ended up in the Soul Sector, Gabriel's homeworld. When we arrived, he offered to take me to a town, but told me to stay close. I had to stay close because it turns out that humans are still very wary of species not native to their planet. Well, learning from their history, I could see why. While on the planet, there was all sorts of cannons. Those that made noise, some launched clothing or sweet treats for children. Yet there were absolutely nothing compared to the defense cannons that were scattered across the planet. These massive electromagnetic cannons are designed to take out entire battleships with a single strike. Shocked, I simply asked, "Why?" As no other species had such weapons. Gabriel said, "It's kind of a tradition." I didn't understand later until he finally brought me to a demonstration of the antique cannons from back when chemically fired projectiles were the pinnacle of their warfare. Warfare which is extending all the way back through their history, something that actually makes everything shiver from my snout to the tip of my tail every time I think about it, how they would destroy each other so gruesomely. When we got to the demonstration, we were being told to wear hearing protection. We found out that I was going to be able to fire the cannon. There was something lost in translation, as I didn't think I was going to burn it, but apparently combustion means something else, but has multiple meanings, sometimes. I didn't understand it, but I just followed Gabriel's lead. I was so happy that I was going to be able to fire the cannon that my scales actually shedded just a little bit out of sheer joy. As we prepared to fire, I was given a small stick that had a slowly combusting end to it. At that point, I was also shown where to touch it off, as they put some sort of strange black dried chemical compound on it. I was told that this chemical compound is some sort of accelerant or some sort of not really explosive, but simply burns extremely fast. It's a hell of a show, they told us. Looking forward to whatever was going to actually happen, I leaned forward towards the end of the metal tube to get a good look at the metal ball as it exited, but before being able to do that, they went up and told me that I need to step back, as the shockwave could damage me. I wasn't sure about this, and they said that when the explosive goes off, then it sends out a shockwave that, if you're next to it, can damage your hearing, but would also damage your internals if you're too close. So, of course, I backed away as much as I could. Not wanting to be injured, I stepped behind the large metal tube and put the combustion end to the touch hole. It started to burn for a moment as several humans screamed. I believe they were screaming in pleasure. Not realizing what the reason was for the sudden yelling, I simply kept watching directly forward. The metal tube burst forth of the 12 pounds of chemical powder in a brilliant burst of fire and smoke. However, I did not get to enjoy it, as the tube of the cannon lurched back and struck me with enough force that I ended up flying backwards, far enough past my tail and on the ground, looking straight up at the sky. On the ground, in severe pain, Gabriel came to see if I was at least still alive. Unable to speak, I waved at him that I was just a little hurt and just to give me a few moments. Gabriel then stood over me, held himself up, realizing something, and said, "Didn't I tell you about recoil?" Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. The story that you just finished was actually a request by someone on our live stream that happens every Wednesday at 18:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, recommendations, feel free to drop in and say hi. I'm sure everybody would like to see you. Until then, this is Syntax, punching out.